I never thought that a day like this, my daughter's wedding, would bring so many mixed emotions. I was there, wearing my simple blue dress, which I had bought thinking I would go unnoticed, but my heart wouldn't let me. It was beating hard, half fast, half slow, as if it wanted to remind me that I had survived until then. Entering that huge hotel, all shining with marble and crystals, made me feel small in front of that world that seemed so far from my reality. Her future son-in-law's family had money and connections, and me, I only had my story, full of falls and silent victories. Looking at my daughter Emma that day was like reliving everything I had gone through to get there. I wasn't just a mother, I was a warrior, and not always with pretty clothes or luxurious parties. Inside, a mixture of pride and fear consumed me. Fear of not being enough. Fear that the people around me would see the simple woman I am, and not the mother who did everything possible to give her a better life. I wanted so much to smile for real without that weight on my chest. But the truth is that only there, in that shiny lobby, did I feel how much I still had to fight. Not to be accepted, but to finally accept myself. While I waited for the ceremony to begin, I sat in a corner of the hall to breathe. No one noticed me, which was actually a relief at that moment. People were walking around, arranging flowers, smiles, glasses, and expectations. And there, quietly, I was invaded by memories that I thought I had already buried. I remembered the time when I lived in a small room in the back of an acquaintance's house, with Emma still small, sleeping on a thin mattress on the floor, covered with a blanket I had received from the church. I would wake up in the middle of the night with her crying from cold or hunger, and I would swallow my tears so as not to scare her. There was a day when the only thing I had to offer her was some burnt rice and water with sugar. She accepted it as if it were a banquet. I was a single mother from the beginning. Her father disappeared before he even knew if she was going to be a girl or a boy. He didn't want to know. I stayed, and I never stopped staying, even when my body and mind screamed for help. I was a cleaner, a cook, a dishcloth seller at the market. I washed clothes for others, all at the same time, just to make sure she could study, eat, and dream. At school, she always came back saying she wanted to be someone important. And I said, "You already are." But inside, I was terrified that I wouldn't be able to give her even the basics. Seeing her in that white dress, surrounded by expensive flowers and elegant people, made me feel like, somehow, it had all been worth it. But at the same time, it tore me apart inside to realize that that victory was hers. And I was there trying to understand if I was still part of it all. It was when I saw my sister arrive with my nephew that I felt the strongest blow of the day. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. Our last conversation was a nasty fight, the kind where everything is thrown in your face, full of pent-up resentment. She always had a more stable life, got married young, never had any problems. And I, with my twisted history, was what she called a burden. She said she helped me too much, that I was just leaning on her, that I made bad choices and then wanted support. When Emma got into college, my sister even said that she had only gotten there because of quotas, as if nothing I had done, no late nights, no extra hours cleaning the bathroom, had mattered. That destroyed me. I distanced myself, not out of pride but out of protection. So, when I saw her entering the salon, well-dressed, with that look that had always judged me, something inside me froze. I wanted to get out of there. I felt ashamed, afraid, anger. But it was at that exact moment when she stopped in front of me, looked me in the eyes and held my hand without saying anything. That was when the lump in my throat turned into a silent cry. I didn't expect that from her. Not that day, not after everything. And even though I was dying of shame inside, for my simple clothes, my worn shoes, my badly done nails, that hand holding mine was the first thing that day that made me feel like I belonged. Even if it was just for a few minutes, I saw there, in that small gesture, a chance to fix some broken part of me, because I also broke myself along the way, and until that moment, I thought no, and saw that. I stood there, holding her hand for a few seconds, not really knowing what to do. I didn't hug her, I didn't smile, I just held her, and so did she. It was strange, but it was powerful. She just said, "You've made it this far, Sarah." And that kept ringing in my head like a key opening a long locked door. I had made it. I, that woman who spent years having to choose between buying gas or paying the electricity bill, who cleaned the bathroom at 6 in the morning and babysat at night, to earn some extra money. I, who at various times wished I could disappear, vanish, turn to dust. And now I was there, in a luxury salon, wearing my simple dress, covered in invisible scars, but standing tall. That sentence of hers, even though it came from someone who judged me so much, touched me. Because maybe I never gave myself credit. Maybe I spent so much time blaming myself for not giving my best that I didn't even realize how much I had given it my all. And there, with that room full of expensive flowers and important guests, the only thing I could really feel was a tightness in my chest for never having valued myself as I should have. When the ceremony began, I was shaking, but it wasn't the cold from the overheated air conditioning, nor the obvious emotion of watching my daughter get married. It was something else. It was a suffocating fear of not being able to handle the moment, of having a breakdown right there in front of everyone. I didn't know how to control it. My hands were sweating, my legs were shaking. I took several deep breaths, but it seemed like the air wouldn't come. I saw people smiling, hugging each other, taking pictures, and I felt out of place, as if I had crashed a party where I wasn't really invited. When Emma walked in, beautiful with that sparkle in her eyes, my heart raced so fast that I almost fainted. But then the hardest memory came back, the day I almost gave up. She was about 10 years old, and I was out of work, behind on my rent, and had an empty refrigerator. I sat on the bathroom floor and cried until I couldn't breathe. I thought about disappearing, about leaving a letter and disappearing. But she came in, hugged me and said, "Mommy, I can live without toys, but I can't live without you." That made me get up. I kept going because of her, and now she was there, fulfilled, happy, starting a new life. And I just wanted to be able to feel whole, even though I was so broken inside. During the ceremony, I tried to pay attention to every word, but I confess that my mind wouldn't stop. I looked at the altar, saw my daughter so confident, and thought about how she managed to become such a strong, determined woman. And then I remembered that somehow, even with all her flaws, I helped shape her. But I also felt guilty, because behind everything she achieved, I knew how fast she had to grow up. She saw more than a child should see. She saw me cry in secret. She saw me arrive home from work hurt. She saw me being humiliated in a job interview. She saw me lie to her saying that everything was fine. That ran through my insides like a thick needle, sewing together memories that I wanted to erase. And yet, she never blamed me. She never threw anything in my face. She always treated me with affection, with respect. When she looked at me there at the altar and gave me that smile, I broke down. I felt a tear run down my face, and I didn't try at all to hide it. For the first time in a long time, I let it hurt, in front of others, because it was real. All of it was real. After the ceremony, there was the reception. The tables were decorated, the waiters were passing around with silver trays, everyone was smiling and toasting, and there I was, sitting, trying to stay calm, taking deep breaths so as not to let the chaos that was still inside me show. I saw people praising the buffet, talking about international trips, laughing at stories that I didn't even understand. And that made me feel like I had worn the wrong outfit to a party that wasn't for me. I felt out of place, not because of the lack of money or the simplicity of my clothes, but because it seemed like no one there knew the path I had taken to get to that hall. I wanted to stand up and shout, "Do you know what that girl went through? Do you have any idea who I am and what I had to swallow to get her here?" But of course, I kept quiet, standing firm in my corner. Because being a mother is also like that, swallowing what hurts so as not to ruin what is beautiful. But inside me, every toast, every exaggerated laugh reminded me of everything I had had to endure in silence for more than 20 years. And in that silence, once again, I felt alone. Only this time, I didn't want to feel that way anymore. While everyone gathered to take pictures with the bride and groom, I remained sitting there, watching everything happen as if I were just a spectator. Some people came up to me, smiled, complimented. Emma said, "You must be very proud." And I just nodded and replied with a, "Yes, very much so." But inside, I felt a mixture of pride and pain that only someone who has been through so much can understand. I looked at the groom's parents, all dressed up, smiling as if the wedding were a magazine ceremony, and I wondered if they had ever wondered where Emma came from. Did they know that she studied at dawn because she spent the whole day helping me? That she cleaned the house, cooked food, took care of me when I was without strength for days? I doubted. But maybe it didn't even matter. I was the one who needed to remember all of this. I needed to stop putting myself down. I needed to understand that I had also won. And at that moment, with my cell phone in my hand, I took a picture of Emma smiling with the bouquet in her hand. I saved it. That image would be my living reminder that despite everything, I made it. Later, in the middle of the party, she came up to me. Emma took my hand and said, "Come on, Mom, take a picture with me." I was reluctant. I said I was sweaty, that my hair was messed up, that I didn't look pretty. She ignored me. She pulled me in with a smile and said, "You're the most beautiful woman at this party." That broke me, because I can't even remember the last time someone called me pretty. Maybe before she was born, maybe never. I stood up a little embarrassed, feeling the stares of some people. I knew that many of them must have thought I didn't fit in that environment, but at that moment only her smile mattered, and it was there, when that picture was taken, with her holding my arm and hugging me tightly, that something inside me changed. It wasn't a miracle, it wasn't a magical cure, but it was the first moment in many years that I felt whole and, most importantly, seen by my daughter, by the woman I raised, and by the woman I had hidden inside myself for so long. After the photo, she took me to the bride and groom's table. I wasn't expecting that. I thought I would stay in the corner, watching everything from afar like I always did, but she made sure to put me next to her. "You have to stay here, Mom. You're the one who made all of this possible." And at that moment, I saw something in her eyes that gave me goosebumps. Gratitude. A gratitude so deep that it crossed all the years of sacrifice, all the times I thought I had failed, all the moments I felt invisible. Seeing my daughter recognize me there, in front of everyone, as a fundamental part of that achievement, made me fall apart inside. I was shaking. The waiter even asked if I was okay, and I could only respond with a restrained smile. It was as if everything was coming back. The humiliations, the closed doors, the sleepless nights, but this time not as pain. They were coming back as proof. Proof that I had endured, that I had been strong, that even though I was broken, I built a path for her to walk firmly on. The night went by, and little by little, I began to allow myself to enjoy it. Cautiously, like someone stepping into cold water, I smiled at some people, accepted a glass of wine, and even danced a little when they played an old song that reminded me of the times when I still had dreams of my own. For the first time in years, I gave myself the right to exist in that space, not as a shadow, but as someone who has a story. And it was strange, because in the midst of the joy, I also felt sadness. A good sadness, if that exists. As if I was finally saying goodbye to that version of myself that only knew how to survive. and making room for a woman who can, yes, feel proud of herself. I'm not perfect. I made mistakes. I kept quiet. I put up with more than I should have, but I never stopped fighting. And that night, with my feet hurting in the tight shoes and my heart still sensitive, I felt that something inside me had changed forever. When I got home that night, it was already dawn. I took off my dress carefully, as if I were taking off more than just fabric. It felt like I was leaving behind armor. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was tired, my feet were swollen, my makeup was smudged, but there was something different in my eyes. I hadn't seen myself like that in a long time. It wasn't vanity, it was something else. It was dignity. It was as if I had finally allowed myself to see myself with the same love I had always given Emma. I sat on the edge of the bed and began to cry softly. It wasn't a cry of pain, it was a cry of relief. Relief for having managed to get this far without giving up on myself. Relief for seeing that despite all the falls, I had left a good mark on the world. My daughter, she was my greatest success. And in that silence of the house, with the dim light of the lamp, I understood that that day hadn't just been her wedding. It had also been my rebirth. I stayed awake until the sun started to come up. I made a strong coffee and went to sit on the porch. The city was still half asleep, the air was fresh, and for the first time in a long time I took a deep breath without feeling that weight on my chest. It was as if I was making peace with myself, and there, alone, with the cup in my hands, I promised myself one thing. I will never hide again. I will never shrink at parties, at family gatherings, anywhere. I have the right to exist, to take up space, to be remembered not only as Emma's mother, but as Sarah who faced everything and didn't break. Or better yet, who broke several times, but always found a way to put the pieces back together. I know I still have a lot to heal. I know that life won't change overnight. But now I have a certainty that I never had before. I am no less than anyone else, and I deserve to feel at peace with my own story. In the days that followed, it was hard to get back to my routine. Not because anything had gone wrong, but because that wedding shook everything inside me. It seemed like every memory, every old pain, came flooding back with more force. I went to work as usual, took the crowded bus, faced the same tiredness as always, but now I saw things a little differently. For the first time, I stopped feeling like an imposter in my own life. I realized that the fact that I didn't have money, that I wore simple clothes, or that I didn't speak like those elegant women at the salon, didn't make me any lesser. And look, that wasn't easy to accept. I had spent years hearing the opposite, years comparing myself, putting myself down, thinking that all I could do was get by, put up with it. But now, after everything I experienced that day, I began to see that it wasn't just resistance, it was courage. And courage, that's what it is, isn't measured by the heel of your shoe or the size of the party. It's measured by everything you face and still get up every day. There was one thing that really struck me, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. A few days after the wedding, Emma sent me a message with a photo of us at the party. Me, with my hair messed up, holding the glass crookedly, laughing as if the world was light. She wrote, "This is my favorite photo of the night." That completely disarmed me, because I was always the woman who ran away from the cameras, who hid behind others, who deleted the photos where she appeared tired. And my daughter chose exactly that one, where I was the most me, without posing, without a filter, without fear. I cried looking at that image, not out of sadness, but out of recognition. For the first time, I saw myself through her eyes, and I saw myself beautiful. I saw myself strong. I saw myself as enough. And that, perhaps, was the greatest achievement of all, to stop hating myself in silence and to start, albeit slowly, to truly love myself. I spent a good part of my life trying not to be a nuisance, always trying not to take up too much space, not to draw attention, not to seem out of place. Maybe it was because of the many times I was made to feel like I was less than, less intelligent, less capable, less of a woman. But after that wedding, after everything I felt and relived on that one day, I started to question those voices. I started to realize that they were the ones that kept me from smiling in many photos, from holding my head up high at family gatherings, from getting ready for myself. They were the ones that made me accept crumbs in so many aspects of life. And now, with the house empty and Emma starting a new life, I started to think about what I wanted. For the first time in many years, I asked myself what I liked, what I missed, what I wanted to do with the time I still had. And that question, as simple as it may seem, was one of the hardest I've ever asked myself, because I spent so much time surviving that I forgot how to dream. A few days later, I went to the city center alone. I took the subway, walked in the middle of the crowd, and went into a clothing store just to try on something I would never have dared to wear before. A floral dress, completely different from what I would wear. And do you know what was strange? I liked seeing myself in it. I didn't buy it. I still didn't have the courage. But the fact that I went into that dressing room and looked at myself with different eyes was already a victory. I went home with a hot coffee in my hand and a strange feeling in my chest. A mix of longing for the woman I was and the desire to discover who I can still be. I don't know if everyone understands this, but when we spend our whole lives fighting to keep others upright, there comes a time when we forget to take care of our own backbone. And now, alone in my small house, with the bed made and silence as company, I'm trying to relearn how to live not only as a mother, but as a woman, as someone who can still choose, even after having been chosen so much by circumstances. A few days later, Emma called me on a random afternoon just to chat. She was beaming, talking about her honeymoon, her plans with her husband, and the decisions she had made about the new house. I listened attentively, happy that she was happy. But when she asked, "And you, Mom, are you okay?" I froze. I thought about answering with the automatic, "Yes, I am," as I always did, but I held myself back. For the first time, I said, "I'm rediscovering myself." She was silent for a few seconds, and then she said, "You deserve this." And that sentence, coming from her, had a huge impact on me, because for years I had put myself aside so that she could blossom, and now she was giving me back some of the light that I had helped to light in her. I thought about it the rest of the day. In fact, I still think about it, because this feeling of deserving is new to me. And I confess that I'm still learning how to deal with it without feeling guilty, without thinking that I'm being selfish for wanting to take care of myself too. At the end of that week, I made a simple but very important decision. I started walking every morning, just me, my headphones, and the sound of the city waking up. At first, I felt embarrassed. I thought everyone would look at me, that they would notice my worn-out clothes, my tired body. But soon I realized that no one was paying attention, and that was liberating. I started walking with more confidence, listening to music that reminded me of the woman I once was and the woman I can be again. On these walks, I started remembering old dreams, taking a course, visiting a place I always wanted to, learning something new just for the fun of it. I haven't accomplished any of these things yet, but the simple act of allowing myself to dream again is already a form of healing. Each step I take is an answer to all the times I thought there was no way out. And today, when I look in the mirror before going out, I see someone who is finally choosing herself, not as a reward, but as a new beginning. Sometimes I still have that old thought, you know? That voice that whispers that I should have done things differently, that maybe I failed too much, that my story isn't that valuable. But now I listen to that voice and answer back. I tell myself, you did what you could with what you had, and it was more than enough. I stopped demanding perfection from myself. Today, I look back with a kind of respect that I never had for myself, because surviving alone, raising a daughter with love and dignity, even in times of scarcity, and still standing tall, that's strength. And no matter how much the world tries to convince me otherwise, I know how much I fought. Not to appear strong to others, but because I had no choice. And now that I have some choice, even if it's small, I choose to live in a lighter way. I don't forget what I went through, but I don't let it define me anymore. Today, I see myself as I am. A woman who fell 1,000 times and got up 1,001 more time. If anyone is reading this and feels invisible, exhausted, as if the world has forgotten about you, I want to say, I understand. I was that woman for years, and the turning point didn't come with money or a miracle. It came on an ordinary day that became extraordinary because for the first time I saw myself with different eyes. Everything changed at that wedding, not because the party was beautiful, but because it was the day I finally saw myself. And seeing yourself after being hidden for so long is an act of courage. Today, I keep walking. Sometimes with fear, sometimes slowly, but always moving forward. Because now I know that I don't need to hide anymore. I am Sarah, and I won.